Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of Up to the Minute. We were here at the Student Government SGA debate and we have full coverage for you coming up. These questions are going to start out really simple at first, and not that they're going to get really hard in any way, but first question, Matt, you can go, and then it'll be for both of you guys. We'll tell you if it's specifically directed at you guys, and just answer to the best of your abilities. And the first question will be, what do you both think SGA has done well this year under your administration, and how do you guys think you guys have improved?
Hey, do you mind if we introduce ourselves real quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Maybe not everyone knows about us.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what's up, guys? I feel like, I know most of the people here. If you don't, my name is Matt Jarvis. This is Emily Kenner. We're your current student body president and vice president. This year has been kind of an amazing ride. I think it's been a lot different than what we both expected. And we're really looking to do that again to further the changes that we've made on this campus, but also to just demand what our students deserve on this campus. Ultimately, our campaign is really just boiled down to allowing people to be valued and respected and loved as sons and daughters of Marshall, regardless of any different belief, culture, creed, sexual orientation, you name it, but give that equal opportunity to all of our students on this campus.
Hey guys, my name is Alex Parlock. It's my brother Daniel. We're running for president, vice president, student body. Hey, just to give you a little background about us and what we do. We're both, to start off, we're both military veterans. And by military veterans, I mean we've actually deployed to Afghanistan, fought there, and came back home. I spent about 10 months there. Daniel spent about 6 or 7 months there. So we've been there, done that. I'm also a small business owner in the area. I got a little tree company called Stop, Chop, and Drop It. Check it out online. We've been in business for about 2.5 years now. We're doing really well, growing really quickly. I also own a house here in Huntington, and so you guys know I'm invested in it, and that whenever I'm doing this, I'm doing it for the better part of everyone here. I'm not going to be moving away at the end of my year. I'm not going to go somewhere else and just put this on my resume. This is something that I'm invested in, that we're invested in. Daniel's an RA. We grew up here. We've lived here for 23 years. This is our home community. This is our hometown. And that we're doing this as a service, because that's what we do. We serve. We're Eagle Scouts. We're military Afghanistan war veterans, and we serve.
If you want to continue with that, you can answer the first question right off that, which was, what do you think SGA has done well this year, and I guess what do you hope to change?
Okay, SGA has gotten more people involved in the SGA part of it. I believe they've done well continuing on. We had a pretty good packed house at filing for all the Senate seats. So we have people in SGA. I believe you guys have done a good job of reaching out to your friends and getting people more involved in SGA. But what we need to do is we need to get that passed down to the student body. We need to get it passed down to the common folk, everyone who's just walking around on a day-to-day basis, who doesn't go necessarily and seek out, those positions of SGA, the Senate, those people who are just going from class back to their dorm, and get them more involved in campus life and get them out and about. But SGA has done a good job. They've talked about some good things this past year, but what we need is action now.
I've been very proud of what we've accomplished this past year. Coming into this, we knew that we wanted to grow SGA, but we didn't quite know how. We knew we had opportunities that had never really been available before, both with a new Vice President, Cedric Gathings, a new President, President Gilbert, and then also with the development of our undergraduate courses at our satellite campus in South Charleston. We knew that it was going to pose some new opportunities, to maybe new risks and new threats, but we knew that we felt that we were equipped to prepare those. I think really what I've been most impressed with SGA as a whole with our administration has been, kind of similar to Alex said, of reaching out to those students, getting in touch with those maybe minority students, those students who have felt either disadvantaged on this campus or not as involved. This hasn't necessarily been the easiest thing. Whenever you say, we need to have a conversation about police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement, this is something that affects our students. This is something that people are thinking about, they're talking about because it matters. Whenever you propose, hey, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk openly, sometimes that can be kind of daunting or intimidating to people, but it's things that need to happen. Whenever I go into a meeting with our alumni association and say, I'd like to raise $100,000 for student scholarships, whenever I think I threw that number out there, they kind of looked at me and said, okay, this kid's crazy. But sure enough, come November, we did it. So I've just been really impressed, I think, with our administration, the organization, and Marshall as a whole, progressing forward this past year, all the different parts, all the moving parts, it's kind of like a game of chess. There's all these different things going on, and you have to take into account and consideration all of them. But just looking at where campus was a year ago, looking at where we are now, and looking at where we could be, I've been very impressed and very happy with our success and really the success of Marshall.
Going off of what you said about the growth in SGA, do you think that SGA could do more to relate and interact with students outside of student government?
Absolutely. Obviously, the organization isn't perfect. One thing I always, I think really stress is, student government association. I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in different organizations and different programs and different activities. But at the end of the day here, we're students. The students in SGA, the students out of SGA, we're here to get an education. We're here to further ourselves. We're here to develop ourselves. So we can be the successful sons and daughters of Marshall, so we can give back to our community, so we can go on and do whatever we choose to do in our lives. So with that, obviously there are problems, whether it be, what I always get mad at is people being complacent. That's one thing. I think it's the biggest risk really with our generation. But really trying to combat that and find ways we can tackle that. Also people kind of back to that complacency. It's easy to say, well, this is what we've done. It's worked in the past. But kind of bringing in those new, fresh, creative ideas, different approaches, researching those approaches, finding out what works on our campus, what doesn't work on our campus. There's absolutely room for growth.
You want to end it up? Yeah. Or last?
Okay. Like I was saying before, we need to get from SGA down to the student body, and no offense, guys, but I've heard it multiple times. We need to get rid of the country club feel, because it seems almost like a select group, like invite only to the student body, and a lot of them don't even know what's going on in there. So what we need to do is we need to get out, reach out, and say, hey, look, represent your school. Why don't you come represent your school? Why don't you come represent your friends? And we need to make it a very, very competitive election. We're at filing, and there's only been one group running for president and vice president, and they're the sitting president and vice president. I don't think that's right. I think we need to get more people involved from the student body, from the heads of different organizations, get some of their constituents up here and say, hey, look, why don't you come, why don't you run, why don't you pull someone from some random other organization as your running mate? Why don't you come represent the student body and come make a difference? Because there's no reason that there's only 2 campaigns up here. There shouldn't have only been one. If we had stepped up, there would only be one campaign. There wouldn't be a debate right now. There should be 3, 4 campaigns. Everyone fighting tooth and nail to get this spot, to represent the students, to sit on the board of governors and say, hey, look, this is the voice of the students. This is what they think. This is what we need to happen. So I think that we just need to better work on the communication from SGA and the heads of these organizations down to the student body.
Just real quick, I've never been a part of SGA. I've never been a senator. I've sat in on a couple meetings just because I was interested, and I definitely think there's room for growth. Coming from an outsider, I don't even know what SGA really did for a long time until I came and sat in on one of their meetings. I think SGA is a great thing. I think that representing the students and trying to get stuff done is great, but I think there should be more transparency between the students and the students of SGA and the students of Marshall, because right now it seems whenever you say SGA, it's like a foreign word to people. Like they have no idea what you're talking about, and that's why I'm running with my brother, is because I kind of want to break that trend. I want people involved with SGA, and I don't want Senate spots just given to people. I want them actually voted on, and I want to get more people interacted. So that's just an outside perspective, because I know all 3 of these people have been involved with SGA, and I've never, so I'm just kind of giving you an outsider's perspective.
Ellen, do you want to say anything after that at all?
I just think that, SGA obviously does need to get out there more, but we do a lot. And I just want to know personally, what kind of things, because we do, word of mouth is the first thing that, the best way to get things out. And then also flyers are another good way. Digital, screening, we're kind of desensitized to digital screening. We kind of look past it. So what better ways are you guys talking about that we could communicate? Because I don't know, that's my question, is how do you think we could better communicate to the students? Because I do want to be transparent with the student body.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, I think that, at the beginning of each semester, SGA, when they hold their meeting on Tuesdays, instead of actually sitting down and meeting, I think it would be a great idea for everyone just to get up, walk outside and just go out and meet someone. Just go out and meet the freshmen. Go out and just talk to people on the first meeting of each semester or the second meeting each semester, and just go out and really talk to people. Say, hey, look, we're humans. Why don't you come get involved? Why don't you, here's what we're about. Here's what we can do. Here's the differences we made, and then just like list them off, like smoking ban, green machine, other stuff like that. And so I think people will get more involved that way. But as far as the digital message boards, that's another great thing we want to do. We're going to put one in each of the dorm buildings on the first floor when people walk in, walk out, like 2 or 3 in the N2 building. Just get information out, not just about SGA, but about things going on campus, ways to get around, information, feedback. So there's definitely improvement from communication from SGA to organizations.
That's an interesting way to say. I saw that on your platform. How would you guys propose to pay for things like that, putting that in the freshman dorms and I imagine other dorms across campus? How would we, or SBA, pay for that?
Yeah, so Marshall, as you guys know, has a multi-million-dollar budget, and we already have one in the student center here. I think that things like this are investments that the board will understand. Hey, look, you want people to be happy here. Huntington's the literally second most depressed city in the state, or in the country, followed by Charleston, or only superseded by Charleston. So as number one, it's number 2 most depressing places in the entire country. According to the Weather Channel. That's just crazy. Like, we need to get morale up here. I think they'll see that boosting morale of the students will get them to reach back to home to their friends, say, hey, look, Marshall's a great campus, it's clean, here's so much stuff to do, there's so many ways to get around, there's so many, so many things to do here in Huntington. And they'll see it as an investment, because it's an investment. Investing in the students, investing in our local community, and they will understand that even though, it may cost a couple bucks now, it will be worth it in the long run.
Matt?
So we've actually worked pretty strategically with the Office of Communications. Generally, if you want something done on this campus, it's a 50-50. The road's either going to lead back to Jenny Painter or Brandy Jacob Jones. And after talking to these women, talking to different administrators, and doing some surveying and seeing what they've been doing, we've learned that our students really respond well in 3 ways. The first, word of mouth. Word of mouth is the most effective way we can communicate with each other about different events. Second is surprisingly, something that I'm still kind of baffled by, is physical flyers, posters, like old-fashioned, stick it up on the wall. And then the third is actually digital signage. Similar to what Emily said, our generation, we are kind of desensitized to things, scrolling across the screen, it's easy to focus out and zone out from it. One thing that we have worked on that's really been a lot with student affairs, Andy Herman's work with Central Gay Things, Matt James, has been developing, and actually one of our staff members, knock on Mike, is being trained in this. It's a site called Collegiate Link. What this does is actually an opportunity that connects all of our campus programs, all of our student organizations, and all of our students to one central hub. With this, organizations are able to manage their own infrastructure, whether it be logging community service hours or sending out invitations to things. Students who aren't in an organization can go on there, select their preference and say, I'm a nursing student and I like cooking and volunteering with little kids. Any subject, any organization, any volunteer opportunity, any event that's going to relate to any of those is then going to be customized, specialized, and sent directly to those students. So this is something that's already in the works, something that's already happening. As far as the Board of Governors paying for signs, that's actually not really what the board does. What I've learned this year is really what the board does is more at the state level. We see higher education being impacted by different budget cuts, by various political parties, by different things like that. The Board of Governors is really an entity to protect those rights from the student on a much larger level. I also think it's important, and this is something that I kind of had to adjust to, it's not just undergraduate, it's not just graduate, this is med school, this is pharmacy school. This is reaching out to every entity at Marshall that exists, both our investments, our foundation accounts, things that I didn't really even initially know Marshall was involved in. That's really what the board does. So the day-to-day operational budget of purchasing signs, that's not something that would ever really be seen by the board.
All right, going off of that, actually, I'm going to address the board and the state budget. With the continuing threat of budget cuts from the state government, what do you think should be done to ensure that vital student programs here on campus aren't cut, like you just said? How does SGA talk to the board and try to protect these programs at Marshall?
So we're very fortunate in the fact that I think we have one of the most progressive presidents the university's ever seen, but also one of the most progressive boards. Through this, President Gilbert, we've gone ahead and actually taken some just precautionary measures. Once a week, I meet with the Budgetary Works Committee. This was a while back. This is not happening. Let's make that clear. Not happening. But it was a proposed idea by one lawmaker that they should cut higher education budget by 10% across the board. For Marshall, that would equal right around $4.8 million. It's a pretty devastating blow. So as a precaution, President Gilbert said, let's pretend like this is real. What can we do? What can we eliminate? What can we readjust to deal with something that could happen? In reality, Marshall's budget is only going to be cut by about 2.5%. So not nearly as bad as what it should have been or what it could have been, but nonetheless cut. So just within meeting for really the past month, we've been able to go ahead and reallocate around $2.5 million just to go ahead and cover that. And even with that, just speaking with President Gilbert, speaking with the board members, the members of this committee, different financial institutions, and departments in the university, we've actually been able to go ahead and secure about $400,000 for different student activities, undergraduate research for next year. That's gone ahead and built into the made-up budget that we're just kind of toying with right now, and that's an increase to what we're currently doing. So,
Any programs worry about being cut or maybe lose funding in any way?
programs meaning student programs or academic programs?
Student-run programs.
So whenever you do programs, there's really two. You have academic and kind of student affairs, academic affairs, student affairs. Academic affairs kind of goes into, you get into the accreditation body. That's when you start looking at what we do nationally, what we do internationally, what we do globally. We kind of look at how many students are involved in said programs, but also looking towards the future, what programs are going to be needed. Obviously, in the 90s, they were saying, this internet is kind of blowing up. This could be something. So we started pouring money to that. Now we're seeing the need for a lot of engineering opportunities, a lot of health professions. So I think we can expect expansion of those programs. As far as programs being stopped, ended, for a university our size, that's kind of unacceptable. I know there was a lot of criticism with the German program. Frankly, whenever I was coming here as a freshman, I was advised, yeah, you should, major in either Chinese, not major, get a foreign language, either Chinese or Hebrew. Chinese is really hard, and Hebrew, I was like, maybe, and that's something we don't offer. So absolutely, with academic affairs, there should be more things that we should offer, but cutting programs is the baseline last thing that they would ever want to do. Going into student programming, student activities, that's actually kind of the front runner of what is important to this administration, not only ours, but President Gilbert's. Start from the top down. That $400,000, that was very intentional. That was this is money that we believe students need to be successful. About $166,000 of that was going to go to undergraduate research. Currently, research is really defined as, for graduate students, faculty, med school, physical therapy, anything like that. Going off and saying, if there's something that these people need to learn, these people.
I don't want to cut you off, but we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Do you think we can give Alex a
Yeah,
chance to answer?
That was a while ago. Can we get the question repeated,
The
please?
question was, once again, with the continued further budget cuts from the state government, what do you think should be done to ensure that vital student programs are not cut or continue to receive that funding? How would you continue to give them funding?
Continue to get them funding. I don't know if you guys realize, but last year when we did the Green Machine, everyone's tuition increased like $30 a year, which comes out to be like, for the whole budget, you got 16,000 students, so that's like $480,000.
We have less than 14,000 students.
No, I'm talking about not here, but also Charleston campus. We have over 16,000, almost pushing like 17 or 18 after President Gilbert's recruitment efforts. I just read it, but okay. Anyways, there's plenty of ways that we got lots of students here. We've got lots of critical programs. I know that the higher ups they go through, they figure out what the best things are for the students. They keep them, they allocate money that way, and they would never cut the critical programs because that's what Marshall needs to grow. We need to continue on with our excellent education here, just leading the way in West Virginia and keeping the critical programs. But like my brother mentioned in the last debate, we need to figure out where there's gaps, there's stuff that we can cut. We need to cut away the excess fat, essentially. Anything that isn't being utilized, we need to go through, we need to kind of do an audit, and I'm sure we do this every year, and we face budget crisis budget cuts almost every year. So we just need to continue on. President Gilbert's doing a great job, and just keep trudging on.
Okay, you can go ahead.
I'll just reiterate what I said at last debate is also just, we need to get Marshall to contact their representatives in the state legislation. I mean, to tell them how much their budget cuts are hurting just Marshall alone. We're kind of like I used this term before, we're kind of like the abused older brother of the state. WVU gets a lot of funding, and it's really not fair. They get funding right off the top, and then the rest of the institutions have to split that amongst the rest of us, or amongst the rest of the state institutions. And so honestly, I think that if we can get people to contact representatives in our state legislation and tell them how much these budget cuts are affecting us, and see if they can find other ways to balance the state budget, I think that's a great course of action as well. Kind of outside of Marshall, but still a viable option.
You guys can hold on to the mic for this question as well.
So this is a question for you, but you want to answer first. How do you both and SGA feel about the job that Sodexo Dining Services have on campus?
That's actually one of our platforms. I'm just going to talk real quick, and then I'll get to Alex. Sodexo actually, I talked to the Grindstone Coffee. Does anyone know Grindstone Coffee? The guy in the truck? Yeah, he's a cool guy. You guys should talk to him. He's from Australia. Really cool guy. I actually talked to him, and he actually worked on a college campus in Australia, and we were talking about the food services, and he said that one of the best things that college ever did was get rid of the food service on the college campus. Kind of like we have Sodexo. He thought the same thing in Australia, and so that kind of made me think about it. Think about trying to get rid of Sodexo. Not getting rid of Sodexo, but letting them only be in charge of the dining facilities. That way we can bring more vendors on campus. Because right now, if you're a student organization, you have a certain list that you can order from and bring on campus. Otherwise, if you don't order from that list, I mean, people that aren't on that list are banned. They're not allowed to come on campus. They're not allowed to cater to campus. There's a list online with Sodexo and everything. It was actually talked about in the SGA meeting. Anyways, but going back to the Grindstone Coffee, I was talking to this guy and I said, hey, why don't you go and park in the Circle? You'll get a lot more business there. He said, because Sodexo makes us pay 60% of our profits to them. And I think that's absolutely absurd. And I think that one of the things that Alex and I really want to work towards is getting Sodexo only to be in charge of the facility, the dining halls. And that way we can bring more businesses, more local businesses. Because you know that local businesses like Jim Spaghetti, they can't pay that 60% royalty tax or fee. I mean, it's impossible. So if we get rid of Sodexo, or not get rid of, but only allow them to be in charge of the dining facilities, we can get more vendors here on campus, ultimately helping Marshall and Huntington together.
Follow-up question to add on to that. We noticed that was on your platform, but how exactly do you plan on cutting back on the Sodexo required royalties?
Yeah, so I've been planning on talking to the Sodexo representative. As you guys, I don't know if any of you guys have seen her. She walks around Harlow's Dining Hall a lot. We're gonna try to revamp their contract. Right now we don't know the specifics of their contract, but we're gonna try to sit down with some of the Marshall representatives who are in charge of the contracts and stuff, and see if there's any way that we can work with Sodexo to try to get them to just be in charge, because that's where most of their profit is. Most of their profit is with the student dining halls. The rest of it is more like they're not losing profit, but they're kind of hindering Marshall and the community. So we're gonna see if we can find out in their contract if there's any way to allow more community involvement and more vendors to come to Marshall.
Hey, as Daniel and I well know, there's a lot of wiggle room with big contracts. We're both in the Army, we've both seen, waste, excess waste. And so, you guys saw where as soon as Trump got into office, he went and he negotiated these deals, like right away, right off the bat. And, Trump supporter or not, he's a good negotiator. He's written all the deals, so I think there's wiggle room to negotiate with Sodexo and say, hey, look, here's what we're working with. There are other vendors out there, so try to work with us, and we're going to work with you. But we got to work. We got to do something about it. We got to get other restaurants and stuff to be allowed to be on campus, where they're not getting choked out, they're not struggling and fighting just to be here. We got 5-6 restaurants upstairs, and that's it across the whole campus. Like the C-store, that's run by Sodexo. Dining halls, everything is run by Sodexo. So we need to get more opportunity for students to eat with variety on campus. Give them an option to stay here on campus instead of walking down 3-4 blocks to McDonald's, Wendy's. just get them to stay on campus, get more things, more life on campus. That's one of our bullet points.
If I can give Matt a
Pass
chance
it off,
to
yeah.
answer that as well. Thank you.
So obviously, I think everyone here has problems or issues with Sodexo, but luckily this past year we've had the pleasure of getting to work with Cheryl, who you're talking about that you see in the dining halls and stuff. One thing that we have worked with them on is a shoestring menu. So talking to Cheryl about that, really that's like the cheap menu, because we've noticed that a lot of student organizations have problems paying for food when they have their events, which kind of sucks, especially for smaller organizations that don't have the budget for that. So what we've been doing is kind of talking with her and seeing like what options these student organizations do have. So working with her on that shoestring menu for the student organizations, that's something that we'd like to continue working on if we are elected into office, and just make that a better thing for our students.
And you're following up with the contract with Sodexo. Their contract actually ends, June 30th, whatever it is. New contract begins July 1, so the negotiations have actually already started. I've had the opportunity to sit down with not only the two managers here, Cheryl King, Cheryl Brown, also the general and regional manager. About 2-3 weeks ago, they brought in whole marketing team, whole everything to kind of present their idea, really the future of dining, food vendors, things like this on campus. And as much as I would love to see different vendors, different foods, it's not quite that easy. Whenever you go into it, yes, Sodexo is the people who, in my opinion, probably overcharge and overprice foods. But whenever they do that, they're also the same people who staff those restaurants, staff those places. The insurance, the liability, things like that, they cover it. The renovations for Harless that we saw that looks amazing now, that was through Sodexo, that wasn't through Marshall. So whenever we go into these contract negotiations, unfortunately there isn't that wiggle room necessarily. It's a contract, it's a very black and white thing. But I've been in constant communication with Marshall's legal counsel, with President Gilbert, Leighton Cottrell, he's been overseeing a lot, Jindane Howdy-Shell, she's been overseeing this a lot, to work with Sodexo, to work with this contract and see what we can provide to our students. With that, the shoestring budget that we kind of helped develop, Cheryl has really graciously offered to meet with any student organization, anyone who's curious, anyone who has a question, to come, talk to her, meet with her, and to see, how can we lower these prices. She said they're negotiable. She says we understand students have a need, we want them to succeed. That was the contract that was written, but things change and they adapt, they can change. So I think it's nice seeing that there is that flexibility, but no, absolutely, there is that problem that does exist.
Now we're going to kind of move over to some of the audience questions. Audience questions basically are concerns. Everybody's pretty much written down the same concerns, which is social issues on campus. We have a pretty general social issue question, and then we'll elaborate into some more of these. And then also, I think the final thing we're going to try to go to is campus safety. I know that was a big thing you guys had on your
You
platform.
might rebuttal that real quick.
Yeah, rebuttal that, yeah.
Hey, so yeah, contracts are they're written for a reason, to best the interest of both parties. Like I told you before, I own a company. I'm actually a partial owner in a second company called Aspen Properties, where I've bought one rental house, we're working on getting some more. So not only in that, but also in the Army, I'm a sergeant in the Army. I've negotiated contracts. I've literally negotiated contracts, got lower prices, got more of what my interests were. And also, while also securing, they still felt comfortable with their interests. So there's always wiggle room. There's always wiggle room. Like you said, they're negotiable. So we can definitely work with Sodexo, say, hey, look, there are other vendors out there in the country. There are other campus, options for us to get that food in here. And absolutely, they do a good job. They staff it, they insure it. But, open up the market a little bit, and we'll see 10 or 15 people come running.
All right, now we're going to move on to the audience questions. As I said, it had to do a lot with social issues. First, with it growing in different political and social issues across America, how do you first plan on dealing with these challenges when they come up on campus? Because there's already been a few, protests and things like that. And second, I guess, how do you plan on making students feel comfortable, including NT students here, LGBTQ students, things like that? So I know that was on your guys' platform. You guys didn't necessarily specify a lot with the LGBTQ and into community. So do you guys want to start and try to tell the audience what you guys plan on doing and how you want to make them comfortable here?
So this would definitely fall underneath our community involvement bullet point. Instead of, what we want to do is we want to make the campus feel as one, as a whole group, as everybody, as sons and daughters of Marshall, and just make it all inclusive throughout the community, throughout the campus. And we don't want segment people. We don't want you to say, hey, you're this, you're that. We notice that and we appreciate that, but we all want to be sons and daughters of Marshall. And so what we want to do is, like we were saying before, get a couple of those digital message boards in the N2 building, kind of figure out ways to get them better incorporated. Because right now, I don't know if you guys know, but they have like designated like students called conversationers that have to go meet with them every week. And they feel like these people that are meeting with them, that they're doing it only because they're obligated to, because they have to, because they don't have a choice. And so what we need to do is we need to reach out to N2, like we already have in SGA, get a couple seats there, and just say, hey, look, we're here for you guys. We're not only here for you, you're our brothers or our sisters here at Marshall. We're all sons and daughters. Doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, you're here now, and you're part of us. So we need to get better communication out to the students so that everyone shows up to all these events. Everyone makes friends. Everyone's friends with. Yes, if you want to submit a question, you can submit a question to the moderators here.
You get to continue.
Okay. Anyways, and so we want to bring everyone in into the community, into these different events, and have them show up. And we understand that not everyone can show up to every event, but we should get more than a 0.2, 0.1% show up to certain things like Thunder on the Stage, to our talent show, to just different things going on. So just get everyone included, all inclusive, everyone's brothers and sisters here at Marshall.
Okay, just for future reference, we try not to yell out. I can give you guys back to Pat if you want to write down questions more, but, okay, there you go.
Going back to the question, I do think it's unfortunate. These problems, these are greater than a digital message board. These are greater than one campus event. These are issues that affect our students' lives on a very personal, on a very emotional level. One that sometimes it can be hard for a university or institution our size to focus on. That being said, given Marshall's history, it's kind of easier for us to make that relevant. People are treated differently in this country because of the color of their skin. Women make less than men. People of different sexual orientations worry about the fear of being allowed to love who they love. These are problems that are very real. These aren't things that can just, scroll across the bottom of the screen and be solved. And I think really what we've encouraged this past year has been talking about these problems. Whenever we have these conversations talking about, women in Trump America, or the immigration ban right after that happened, having this conversation with our international students, having again, going back to talking about police brutality and things like this, these are messy conversations. These are things where not everyone was necessarily comfortable, and you're not supposed to be comfortable. These are uncomfortable things. These are horrible, horrible things, but we're encouraging our students to discuss these because realistically, our students are the ones who are going to solve these problems in the future. When we talk about these things, they're things that have never been solved. Racism has existed since the beginning of time, and it still continues to exist to this day. We haven't figured it out yet, that everyone's the same. So these are things that it's important that we need to talk about. We have to do this intentionally. We have to go to these students, and we have to meet them where they are and say, this is going to be uncomfortable, this might not be great. We're not all going to agree on this, but we're going to start the conversation. We're going to have this conversation. It's going to be messy, and we know that going into it, but whatever happens at the end has to be better than where we are now. I think we've done a great job doing that this past year, and I think we'll continue doing that within the future, both within our minority programs on this campus, but also relating it to the community. You mentioned LGBTQ+. Really, Huntington actually doesn't have that much of a support system for here. So when we talk about renovating the office down here, moving it, working with student affairs, intercultural affairs to kind of develop this program, we're not looking just to develop for Marshall. We're looking to develop this area, this state. Per capita, West Virginia has more students and teens who identify as trans than any other place in the world. If you also look at the suicide rate there, it is about a third higher than any other minority population in this country. So clearly there's a correlation there, clearly there's a problem, and we're going to address those.
So you plan to move the LGBTQ plus office somewhere?
It's already moved and being renovated. If you guys look, the entire basement of the Student Center is going to change a lot. We actually worked with Campus ID. They're moving over to Drinko, which is going to make available that entire space for student organizations. The LGBTQ office moved from the little closet where it was to a little bit more prominent area. Down here right beside the student organizations, And then the idea is to turn the old LGBTQ office into an interfaith prayer and meditation room in the Student Center. We currently have those in Intu, but we just think that it'd be appropriate to have one really in the central hub, kind of give it an opportunity for our students to go there, no matter what their beliefs are, or if they have beliefs, they just need a quiet place to go and kind of collect themselves for a little bit. We think that's kind of an important resource that we need to have.
Matt had a question actually from the audience.
This is an audience question. With the Trump administration's recent decision to not uphold the non-discrimination policy that would allow transgender students to use the bathroom consistent with their gender identity, what are you going to do to make these particular students feel safe?
Do you want to let the Parlac start?
Yeah.
Read it one more time, please.
With the Trump administration's recent decision to not uphold the non-discrimination policy that would allow transgender students to use the bathroom consistent with their gender identity, what are you going to do to make these particular students feel safe on campus?
So obviously, safety is number one priority anywhere in the world. People feel safe, people feel better, they feel happy. So not only the appearance, not only actually safe, not only actually being safe, but the appearance and the feeling of being safe is also very, very important. So yes, we do need to reach out to these students who may feel uncertain at these times, and say, hey, look, we're here for you. We're your brother, we're your sister, we're here at Marshall. We'll make that community feel again. Are we gonna have any more safety questions, guys? Moderators, we gonna have any more safety questions?
Safety questions, yeah, I can ask you the safety questions.
Okay, that's right. I'm just gonna make sure because I'm gonna hit that on my platform later.
That's going to probably be the last. Campus safety is going to be the issue, because that's
Okay,
a big
sweet.
thing.
All right, but anyways, we do need to reach out. We need to reach out and say, hey, look, you guys, we know you guys are uncertain in these times, but hey, look, you're still our brother, you're still our sister, you're still part of Marshall. You are your son, your daughter. We are Marshall. Okay, so these guys, we understand that there's uncertain times with so much going on for this past election year. But what we need to do is just need to reassure everybody, say, hey, look, I know things are going on around the world, but hey, look, we're here for you. We are your brothers and sisters. We are here. We're your immediate family now. And so, hey, don't worry about those guys. Don't worry what's going on there. You got us.
It's normal for students to be stressful whenever they come on a college campus. You're stressed about a test, a presentation, finals, going on a date. It's normal to be stressed about that. Knowing, where you're going to pee is something that students really shouldn't have to worry about. Our administration, we've established the first gender-neutral restroom in the Student Center. They had a couple in the library and a couple, a family restroom in the rec center. So we've established that in the Student Center, and we're moving forward to establish those in the academic buildings on this campus. We've also had the opportunity to sit on a gender-inclusive housing committee to see what can we further do to develop our housing and residence life to meet the needs and demands of what our students are not only wanting, but what they deserve. Ultimately what they need. Marshall currently, it's on, I believe, the 6th or 11th floor. In Towers, we have is a gender-inclusive housing. However, it's really not promoted as such. And I think it's honestly just underwhelming, kind of the resource that's available to that for an institution our size. Ohio University, a little bit to the north, they actually have a great program set up. We're looking to adapt some of those policies here. But the main concern really when we went to set this up is Marshall ready to come out and say we are gender inclusive housing? With that, there's a couple of different risks that you pose. How do you vet the individuals living there? Is that something you put on an application? You don't want to make someone who identifies as LGBTQ+ go through additional application to live somewhere. That's wrong. So what is the appropriate way to do this? How can we do this most effectively to our students and get them these services? But again, even agreeing with Alex, going back to these students saying, the world is a crazy place. America right now, like it or not, is kind of a crazy place. But at Marshall, we can change that a little bit. And there's not really an opportunity where anyone in this room is going to have the ability to go speak to everyone in the world or America, or even the state of West Virginia. But this position gives us the opportunity to speak to the students at Marshall, to speak to the citizens of Huntington, to let these individuals know this is an inclusive place, this is a pluralistic place, this is a safe space, this is a place you can come, you can grow, you can be yourself, you can develop as a person, and you're going to be judged on your accomplishments, on what you say, on what you do, not on who you identify with, who you are. And really just further promoting that, I think, is the way we're going to be able to address a lot of those concerns.
Continuing issue that is also coming in from the audience is with the new revised travel ban, 6 Muslim majority countries are still banned from coming to the U.S. And we have students here, students from Libya and students from different not being welcome here, not being able to go back home. How does Marshall want to approach making those students feel comfortable, making those students feel safe, giving them housing maybe if they have to, if they can't go home, because they want to continue their studies here. So you guys can decide whoever wants to answer that question first, if you want to answer that first, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I think the travel ban, the first one, that kind of news kind of happened on a Friday. We had our SGA Senate retreat on that Sunday. By that time, we already had a plan of action of what to do, of where to go, of how we're going to accomplish this. By around 8 on Monday morning, we were already talking to the president's office about, we're going to have a forum at 1 o'clock today, get as many people there as we can. This is important, this is pressing, how are we going to advertise this? We had about 200 individuals at that event, both community members, faculty, staff, students. If you look, I think, there's around like 22 students of Marshall were from the 7 countries that were on the original ban. But now what we're seeing is that there are actually countries, India being a big one, that is actually denying our students visas. It's not listed on the ban, however, just that fear alone is creating this turmoil for our students. Marshall is kind of like the rest of the country in the fact that we don't know what tomorrow brings with this, but we know what we can do on this campus now. With that, it's promoting this love, promoting this respect, promoting this inclusivity, making these resources not only available, but very visibly available. And that's from the top down. Marshall's legal counsel, which is usually for those big contracts, is now making themselves available to meet with students one-on-one to talk about what can we do specifically for your situation. Also using the power of technology. Our parents programming, we've set up an event with them in April for Unity Month. It's really easy to have parents weekend or something now, but how do we do that internationally? So we're looking at ways where we can set up and be able to maybe virtually or so on, have these families represented on this campus to stand in solidarity, letting these students know that this is an accepting and open place regardless of what the rest of the country may feel, giving them the resources and the adequate information, up-to-date information on how we can properly tackle these situations that they're dealing with. Each student is dealing with something, personal, individual. The idea
I
of...
don't want to cut you off, but I got to give Alex a chance to answer that. So the question was once again, how you guys want to make students, especially Muslim students or students even from those Muslim majority countries, how are you going to make them feel comfortable? How are you going to make them feel safe? And do you think we should go maybe the extra mile to make sure they feel safe and can continue their studies here at Marshall?
I think it's, like I said before, I think it's absolutely imperative that every single student, every single person in our community feels safe. Not only are safe, but the fact that they feel safe is imperative. So we need to reach out absolutely and have understanding and say, hey, look guys, you guys are still students here at Marshall. That nothing has changed. There's no difference. Just because our president does one thing, doesn't mean we're going to change our viewpoints on you guys. You guys are still our brothers, still our sisters, and we still love you, okay? And like I said, with understanding, I really truly believe that the students from those countries, they understand what's going on in the world. They didn't grow up here in Huntington, West Virginia, or the United States, and I've been there, okay? So I've been to Afghanistan. I know it's not on the travel ban, but there's a lot. Those countries are not safe places, okay? There are certain areas in those countries where you cannot walk around, like at night, okay? And so they understand that there's something going on. There is a little bit. There's a reasoning behind all this, but they know that we still love them. So they need to realize that that nothing's changed from us just because our national defense has changed a little bit, just because we've taken different stances a little bit. Nationally, that doesn't mean that Marshall's changed.
Oh, you can answer after Matt.
I have to disagree with that. Things haven't changed a little bit. Things are different. The world that we knew a year ago is different than the world we're living in today. The rhetoric being used in this country, I've lived here for 21 years, and I'm confused by just the hatred and the bigotry that we're seeing pop up from quite literally the top down. This is a different country than what we've ever seen. This is from globally, this is from domestic. Our international students are confused with the rhetoric being used only because, not only because it's different from that of their own, but it's different from that than what we know here in the States. So I think, just saying, hey guys, don't worry, you're loved at Marshall, that's not cutting it. We have to be realistic with these expectations of the world is a different place. Marshall is a public institution. Whatever is said federally, legally we're supposed to abide by that. And it doesn't necessarily mean we will, because we have our own values and our own beliefs here on this campus and with this administration. But we can't just ignore the reality of the fact that our world is different, but don't worry, Marshall is the same, because no, Marshall will absolutely be impacted by these decisions from our current president. Whether we like it or not, whether we want to accept it or not, that's the reality of the situation.
Daniel, do you want to answer that?
Just real quick, I think Into people are people are more prepared to be here in Huntington. I actually talked to a good friend of mine. He said, "Do you feel scared walking around Huntington at night?" Because I mean, we all know the stereotype of Huntington. You walk around at night, you might get stabbed or shot or something. Anyways, and he's like, no, honestly, it's probably way safer than where I came from. Because Alex is right. There are places over there where you walk around, you do not want to walk around. But I talked to him for a long time about this. He's like, no, actually, I feel completely safe here in Huntington. So I think that people who come to Huntington from these countries are more prepared to, they do know what's going on, and I think they're kind of more prepared than some people coming to Huntington, just because they've been in that environment. Also, you talked about housing before, and I do think that should be a viable option, because if they're okay right now. If they go back and then they try to come back to the U.S., they won't be able to come back. But if they don't go back, if they stay in the U.S., they'll be okay for right now. So I think that housing, we should work with Marshall on trying to get these people housing so that they are able to stay here. I know that Marshall offers housing throughout the summer, and so maybe we could talk to HRL and see if we can figure out something to do with these students that are being affected by this ban. And also not just the Into people, but also the other foreigners that are outside the Into, because Into is a program which brings in students, but there are also foreigners that are outside of the Into program. We just need to make sure that we outreach to them as well, and not just Into. So just make sure Into and all of our foreign brothers and sisters of Marshall are feeling safe and have a place to stay.
I think we're going to move on to our final topic, which will be campus safety. So it's more relevant to what you were just saying. But I guess on your platform, you guys said that's one of your biggest issues, campus safety. How do you plan on keeping students safe here on campus? You said something about using an app. Is that app Tiger? There's a Tiger safety thing. I tried looking up an app that had the description of what you said in your platform. I could only find one thing. I know it said campus safe app, but I just couldn't find it. So if you could tell the students about what this app is and where they can find it,
Yeah,
and
awesome.
how accessible it will be with the MUPD.
Awesome, yeah. So Campus Safe is an app developed by some college students, some actually graduate students at I can't remember exact college, but what it is you got your mobile phone, obviously, and you pull up the app if you're scared. Now you're walking back, something's going on, and all you do is you hold down a button for 2 seconds. 2 seconds, and you're connected with MUPD. They've got your exact location. They can get to you within seconds. Because you guys know all these strong arm robberies, all this stuff happen right here on 5th Avenue, happen on 4th Avenue. That's just completely ridiculous and uncalled for. And like, we have to combat that better. And so within 2 seconds, you're on the phone, MUPD, they have your location, they have a guy in a cruiser, obviously they always have someone patrolling, and they can be there within seconds. So if someone's approaching you and you don't feel safe about it, you hit it like, yo, I'm on the phone with the officer right now, this second. Or you even put it on speakerphone and say, MUPD, So it's called Campus Safe, Campus Safe app. It's like a mobile version of the blue button you guys see around campus. And so I think that'll really help deter any kind of crime there.
Have you talked with MUPD about using this app?
Actually, yeah, I've got a couple friends in the force, and it's very, very feasible. It really is, because it's just an app, and they can get it on their system there in the safety office. And so
Does it cost any money for Marshall?
will it cost money? It will cost, but it'll be very small amount because it's all digital. It's just a software, and so it's an easier way to connect back and forth.
Will the cost of that be coming from the usual Marshall budget, or as changes are made to the university, there have been increases in tuition? Can students expect an increase in tuition due to this, or will this be coming from normal Marshall?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And the number one thing is, the answer is yes, because safety is number one priority. However it has to be funded, we can get creative, we can find out ways to do it. Safety is number one. So whatever has to happen in order to get students to feel safe and be safe, we'll figure out a way.
All right, Matt?
So campus safety has definitely been something that we've really been talking about recently. I've been at Marshall for 3 years now, and it is absolutely a different environment than whenever I came here. How many times does 7-Eleven need to be robbed before we're like, oh, something's wrong? But with this, though, we've identified a couple ways. First way, and I think the largest, is kind of improving and kind of updating our EmuAlert. One thing that EmuAlert does very well, it gets the word out to a large number of people. A lot of people don't realize that EmuAlert is not only for students, but it's for families, it's for parents, it's for community members, it's for faculty, staff, XYZ. So that's a very extensive network. That being said, traditionally Marshall has really only sent that out if it's directly on campus or right across the street. That being said, we know that our students aren't always directly on campus or directly across the street. 60% of our students here are commuter students, and with that, we know the majority of that really just live, off campus within the area. For the longest time, Marshall's idea has been, again, it's not on our campus, so we don't really want to send it out. Every time they send out an EmuAlert, that gets reported, that gets tracked, and then it goes to Marshall's overall statistics for recruitment, X, Y, and Z. So if you put out an EmuAlert every time someone sneezes, that looks very poor in the university. That being said, there's some major flaws within the system. It was about a month and a half, where there was a shooting outside of Who's on Fourth. Very popular bar for a lot of our students. Marshall stayed silent. And I made that very vocal that I was frankly pissed off. And with that, we started looking at ways that we can develop that. The bus system was kind of the first step where Marshall identified the fact that students go out on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays, which was a crazy thing for some reason that college students do that. So that was the first kind of step in the right direction. And now we're seeing Marshall further identify the fact that their students are at different places in Huntington. Places that have these high student populations, these concentration of Marshall students, are a place that we're looking to identify to include within the EmuAlert system. Again, another easy one is additional lighting on campus and just improved lighting. One thing that I've looked at with the Budget Chairworks Committee, Housing and Residence Life, and just university functions, is increasing and doing LED lighting. LED lighting, first off, it'll pay itself off within a year with the cost savings, which is great. It's already done. After that, it's obviously brighter, it's more efficient, it's overall safer. And then finally, a medical amnesty policy. Whenever we talk about campus safety, I think sometimes it's easy to talk about other people doing harm to you, but in reality, we know that there's lots of different types of harm, whether it be substance abuse, alcohol abuse, XYZ, list goes on and on. Some universities have started to implement these. I think Marshall is kind of lacking with this. We talked about it. It's not necessarily a popular decision. Ultimately, what it does is it's kind of bystander intervention related in the fact that there are two individuals. One has had too much to drink, consume of X, Y, and Z, whatever it happens to be. And we've seen the statistics. We know that people are afraid to do the right thing, to call 911, to call the police because of that retaliation from the university. What this does is actually, it doesn't remove the retaliation of a legal consequence. If you're 19 and you're drunk, you're going to get an underage. But what it does is it moves to rehabilitation rather than punishment for these individuals, and it goes through that process. And what we're looking to do is overhaul that idea and expand that to student organizations, hopefully be able to promote those activities in a safe environment. So when we talk about campus safety, it's important to know this isn't just a strong arm robbery. This is reality. We live in the drug capital, really, of America, of the world. So we need to take those concerns seriously. Binge drinking is 42% more likely to happen within college than it is any other time in life. That's a scary statistic because, realistically, this kills people. So whenever we talk about campus safety, it's more than just improved lighting. It's about saving lives with really self-harm.
All right, that's pretty much all the time we have. I'm going to let you guys all four of you say your last thing before we end. So you guys can sell yourself, I guess, in the best way possible, all four of you. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I think Matt and I are a really great team because we just kind of, help each other with our strengths and weaknesses. Matt's the talker, I'm the listener. Matt's, we're different. We have a lot of different qualities about us, but that, helps us when we're making big decisions. And, he's a business person. He likes to get things done. He's on time usually, and sometimes I'm not. But I think that we've worked really hard this past year to, help the student body, and I'd like to be able to continue doing that this next year. So please vote me tomorrow and Wednesday.
This past year has been the most fun I've ever had on this campus. I describe it as kind of the best dress someone could ever ask for. Being able to work with these students on an individual level, seeing them succeed, turn to the leaders of this campus and this community has been just such a blessing and just such a great thing. And I think we both said that we wouldn't run again unless that we felt that we were the right people to continue this progress that Marshall's seeing. And I truly believe that we really are. Our platforms, they might be a little wordy, they might not be that flashy, but the things that the students of this university need to demand. There are different services, there are different things that, in order for us to be functioning and successful adults, sons and daughters of Marshall, to give back to this university, this community, this state, to make an impact while they're here, but also, when they go away, wherever that happens to be. These are things that they need to do and have to be equipped to do those. So we really appreciate your vote. If we've, maybe struck a nerve with you, if we've identified something that you feel passionate about, please come talk to us. We're doing this for students, and we're doing this because these are things that we believe in. These are values that we think need to be represented on this campus in this community more. We'd appreciate your vote. Tomorrow it opens at 8 a.m., runs all through the night, closes at Wednesday, I believe it's 4:30. It's online, the instructions are really easy. If you have a question or comments or concerns or anything, please come talk to us anytime. Thanks guys for coming.
Hello. I just think that, I just want to say real brief, this is not a position that Alex and we're not running for a popularity contest. We really want to serve. We've been serving all our life. I love people, I love Marshall, I love Huntington, I love West Virginia, and I think that through helping Marshall, we can help Huntington, West Virginia, and we can ultimately help. I don't know, I want to serve the people, I really do, and I just love people, and I want people to feel safe, I want people's concerns to be met. I don't know how to explain it. I want Marshall to be awesome. And it already is awesome, but I think that we can take to the next step. I really do. And I don't know. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Hey guys, so like Daniel was saying, we're here to serve. We're here to get that line of communication from the student body to the higher ups. We're here for the little people. We're invested in the Huntington community. We're invested in Marshall. We didn't say this earlier, but I'm actually the 6th sibling from my family to go to Marshall. He's the 7th, then 8th and 9th are also here. 9th is a cross-country runner. So we are very, very invested and only want the best for Marshall. We've been, we got 9 family members that have gone to Marshall. We love Marshall. And we may come across as a little harsh from time to time, but we just want it in the best interest of everybody. We are military veterans. We've been to Afghanistan. We've got the experience, and we think that with your all's help, we can really take Marshall to the next level. So remember, tomorrow and Wednesday, don't vote me, vote us, all of us.
Thank you. And that'll probably end it. If you guys have any other questions, I'm sure go up to them at the end of this. Thank you for coming out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're really approachable, all 4 of us. So.